Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Global Village Language and Global Pathways. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Johnson. Today we're talking about something many learners struggle with. English as a skill, not a subject. Why do so many people study English for years, but still cannot use it in real life?
That's a very common and important question, Johnson. The truth is, many people learn English the same way they learned it in school, as a subject to pass exams.
And that approach doesn't work in real life?
Not really, because a subject focuses on knowledge, while a skill focuses on usage.
Can you explain the difference more clearly?
Of course, when you learn English as a subject, you focus on grammar rules, vocabulary lists, and correct answers. But when you learn English as a skill, you focus on communication, listening, speaking, responding, and expressing ideas.
So one is about knowing, and the other is about doing?
Exactly. And the problem is, many learners spend years knowing English but never practice using it.
That explains why some people can do grammar exercises very well, but cannot hold a simple conversation.
Yes, and that can be very frustrating.
Why do you think this happens so often?
Because the learning environment is not connected to real life. Students are trained to choose the correct answer, not to create their own answers.
So they become good at tests, but not at communication.
Exactly. And in real life, there are no multiple choice questions. You have to think, respond, and interact in real time.
That requires a completely different type of practice.
Yes, it requires active use of the language.
Let me ask you this. What does it mean to truly learn English as a skill?
It means using English regularly in real situations, not just studying it, but actually living with it.
Living with it? That sounds interesting.
Yes, for example, listening to English every day, speaking even in simple sentences, writing short messages, or thinking in English.
So the key is consistency and real usage?
Exactly. Small daily practice is much more effective than occasional intensive study.
That changes the way people approach learning.
Yes, and it also changes their expectations. When you learn a skill, you accept that mistakes are part of the process.
That's very important. Many people are afraid of making mistakes.
And that fear stops them from practicing. But without practice, a skill cannot develop.
So mistakes are not a problem. They are part of learning.
Exactly. Every mistake is feedback. It shows you what you need to improve.
That's a healthier way to look at it.
Yes. And another important point is context.
What do you mean by that?
Learning English through real life situations makes it easier to remember and use. For example, learning phrases for meetings, emails, or daily conversations.
So learning should be connected to real needs?
Absolutely. When learning has a clear purpose, it becomes more effective and more motivating.
Let me ask you something deeper. How does this mindset, learning English as a skill, affect a person's progress in the long term?
It makes a huge difference. People who treat English as a skill improve faster because they focus on practice and real communication.
And people who treat it as a subject?
They may have knowledge, but they often lack confidence and fluency.
So the gap becomes bigger over time.
Exactly.
What would you say to someone who wants to change their approach starting today?
I would suggest three simple steps. First, use English every day, even for a few minutes.
That builds consistency.
Second, focus on communication, not perfection.
That reduces fear.
And third, learn English in context, through real situations that matter to you.
That makes learning meaningful.
Exactly.
I really like this idea. It makes English feel more practical and achievable.
Yes, English is not something you memorize, it's something you use.
That's a very powerful message.
Thank you, Johnson.
This conversation really changes the way I think about learning English.
Me too. It reminds us that learning a language is a journey of practice, not just study.
Thank you for sharing your insights, Naomi.
Thank you, Johnson. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Global Village, Language, and Global Pathways.
We hope today's episode helps you start learning English as a real-life skill.
Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.